Hey there, my name is Shane Craddock, and this is the Inner Edge podcast, where I share a different take on how to lead and live a sustainable high-performance life. Over the course of different episodes, I'm going to challenge the belief that tension, stress, and struggle are essential to success and creativity. My experience is that there's an easier way, there's a better way, and indeed there's an essential way that we need to explore for the times that we live in. So let's go ahead, let's jump in and explore. Hello there. Welcome to today's episode. I hope wherever you are in the world listening to me, that you are taking this opportunity of listening to this particular podcast, maybe to use it to slow your mind down and not just use it for more information. And in this particular episode, hopefully you might appreciate more why I might even be saying that, because I know that there are some people out there listening to this probably on 1.5x speed or 2x speed. But I strongly suggest you don't do that. In general, I suggest you don't do that for my podcasts, but in particular for today's one. So maybe resist the temptation of your inner voice doing that or telling you to do that. I've had an interesting week myself. It's been very productive August, probably unusually busy in my world, probably more maybe client work than normal, but also if you're connected to me, you'll know as well that I've been working on a new app called Here, which is about helping leaders and high performers move into a more, what would you call it, flow state of being, where they will increase their productivity, but also their clarity of mind, their energy. It's really fascinating trying to translate my work into a technological tool. Not that easy, but working away with it. And I will give some updates on this as we go along, particularly into September, where what's happening is the project is moving out of an app and we're going to, I think, create a standalone business, which is quite interesting. Now, also, because I'm working on that, I suppose I'm also challenging myself to create some new ideas, some new IP. And one of the things that I'm getting clearer and clearer on is something I want to talk with you about today. So it's something that's very fresh, which hopefully you'll find interesting and relevant. And it's the concept of what I'm calling mental velocity. Now, if you think about, say, a car, you'll have a rev counter usually on a dashboard. Certainly the old style non-electric vehicles will have a dashboard for your standard combustible or combustion-based engine. And the rev counter will tell you, I guess, in simple terms, if the car is, at the maximum level of its ability or capacity, and you can over-rev a car, you can burn out an engine by being in the wrong gear. That's where the gear changes come in. And I think what I'm talking about today is if your mind had a dashboard or a rev counter, like what would the reading be on it in your world? Would it be at a steady cruising speed, or would it be revving hard into what I call the red zone? And I think the idea I want to share with you today is that in my experience, most ambitious people, most leaders don't burn out because they lack capacity or ability. They actually burn out because they run their mental engine too fast for too long. And from what I can see, that's getting worse in society. So in the next few minutes, what I'm looking to share is maybe how to sense your own mental velocity, how to set it, how to adjust it, and maybe importantly, why slowing it down, even in a busy job or in a busy world, is actually the next edge for stronger performance, not just in your job or your business, but actually your life, and to be able to enjoy your life. Now, I'm going to use different numbers just for purely illustration purposes. There's no science around them. It's more to kind of give you a benchmark in your mind. So let's just say that kind of an optimal zone cruising speed is around, say, 100 revs per minute, RPM. So at around 100, and I'm just making it up, that's your cruising speed, where you're calm, clear, centered, what I would call a 3C state of mind. You're calm, clear, centered, you're more present. Now, if you think about a cruising speed for a car, there is no single cruising speed for all cars, but a general sweet spot, a cruising speed is where you have, I suppose, optimum fuel efficiency and engine longevity and performance. It's usually somewhere between 50 to 60 miles per hour, which is what? It's around about maybe 80 to 100 kilometers per hour. And that's generally where you get the ideal engine and aerodynamic efficiencies for most vehicles. Now, if we just use that, take that as a human. If you go above, in my example, above 150 reps per minute for your mind, I'm going to call that moving into the distraction zone, where it feels productive and you can certainly get a lot done, but you're paying a big price because your mind has moved now out of the optimum zone into an incredibly or much busier zone. And I feel, from what I can see, most people are there. That it's just they have a busy mind. They're not even aware that it's busy. They're not even aware probably that it's a problem. But this is one of the reasons why they might be feeling tired, more tired than they'd like, why their sleep might be interrupted or not great, why they find it maybe difficult to be present in meetings and in their personal life. That's kind of the start of moving into the more dangerous zones. If I go up a level, say 200 plus, I'm going to call that the hectic, scattered zone, where you're more reactive, definitely not as present. It takes almost like a mini crisis to focus your mind. And then also, if I go to the other end, if it's below 100, I access an interesting zone, and I'm going to call that deep calm, insights flow, what I would call here mode, or the here zone, where you're more present. And it seems almost counterlogical to say, well, how can I be in that zone when I've got a busy job, busy life? And this is what I'm talking about for the future. It's a skill that you can enable, even, dare I say it, with a very busy, volatile, uncertain world. Now, a metaphor that might help is, for your mind, is think about almost conveyor belts at an airport where bags are coming out, and there's one bag coming out at a time. Think about your mind. Ideally, it's one bag at a time equals one thought at a time. And that's kind of nice and orderly versus, for most people, in a high rev per minute situation mentally, higher mental velocity, it's almost like having a blender where everything's chucked into the same thing. It's messy, it's noisy. It's like there's 25 conveyor belts converging at the same point, and it's just hard to know what to focus on. And you're jumping around thinking that being busy is productive, but actually it's not productive. It's also exhausting, and you're going to make mistakes. It's also a poor recipe for living an enjoyable, fulfilling life. So if you think about those zones that I've just said in RPM, you've got less than 100, 100 maybe to 120 is the ideal optimal zone, perhaps for somebody who's working. Over 150, you're moving into the hectic zone. Over 200, getting into kind of danger zone, hectic zone. And then even going up higher than that, 300 plus, maybe you're moving into the red zone, which is you're asking for trouble in terms of stress, in terms of basically, I suppose, even physical health, mental health. You're going to have problems. And certainly for me, when I think back to when I was in my dark days in my 20s, I was, without doubt, I didn't realize it. My mind was so busy, so scattered. I was really up in the very high red zone RPM, not realizing that I was burning myself out and also just moving myself into a spiral of depression. Now, if you think about, let's say the line is anything over 100 and below the line is anything under 100. Over 100, you're increasingly going to be forcing your attention. You're more reactive. You're going to miss nuances, subtleties with people in conversation. You're going to be making rushed decisions. So you're going to be making more mistakes. Stress will be on the increase, and your energy is getting used up very inefficiently. So if you can imagine, say, walking into a meeting or a video call where your mind's already at, say, 180 RPM, you're there physically. You hear people speaking, but because you're so mentally busy, you're not really listening. You're not really getting it. You're not that clear. Below the line, so where you're under that 100 RPM, you start to have more presence. Ideas come in effortlessly. It feels a lot more natural. If you're in a conversation, both in work or personal, relationships actually deepen. People feel it off you. You almost draw people into a better conversation. Even for me, as I'm saying that, I'm slowing myself down. It's like moving an athlete into flow, business person into flow or the zone. But they can actually say in that kind of context, actually time feels like it slows down. But what's really happening is that you're slowing your mind down. There's less thoughts. It's not as busy. That conveyor belt has gone from 25, 30, 100 conveyor belts down to maybe one. And so we need to consider that. I just want you to consider maybe the hidden tax of speed, mental speed, versus the leverage that you get by allowing yourself to slow down. Again, even in a busy job, because your inner voice could be saying, yeah, but he doesn't have my life. I work with people who are very, very busy. And part of the trick and what I've seen is that the ability to actually take time out during your busy day when your mind gets busy, slowing it down, is the game changer. Now, what might be the common accelerators to speed up your mind? There's quite a few, but let's just name a couple of common ones. One would be multitasking, where you're doing multiple things at the same time. I'm working on this podcast, or maybe I'm checking messages at the same time. My email tab is open, or people are walking in, interrupting me. Common accelerators, because your mind is jumping around, but really you're adding in conveyor belts for your mind. Or maybe it's what you're saying to yourself in your inner voice, what you're listening to. Like, for example, I'm behind. I've got like 1,000 things to do. I've got so much to do. So you're continuously, even though you're working, you're kind of half distracted, but you're also agitating yourself. Maybe there's constant notifications enabled on both your laptop, your desktop, your mobile phone device. It's relentless. It doesn't have to be that way. Early warning signals, I think, on high RPM are physical. So maybe just bear this in mind for yourself, is that maybe you've got a tighter jaw than normal. Your breath will get more shallow. That's why sometimes just taking a break, standing up, relaxing your body, relaxing your face, your jaw, taking a deep breath slows your body down, but also because your body's connected to your mind and vice versa. If you slow down your body, you will slow down your mind. Or maybe you're getting irritated really easily. You're reactive. They're triggers not just of a mood problem, even though your mood is connected to your mental speed, but it's connected to like a high RPM, very reactive. I was speaking to somebody a few months ago, and this is again quite common. I've had this conversation with several people over my career. High performing leader, very high functioning. But as we get into how they manage themselves, what they shared was they generally would have an hour-long detox, mental detox, after work every evening. But it was always with a drink. And that's a classic sign of a mind that's running in the red zone of high RPM. And for them, and it worked, but then there's negative consequences to having, for example, alcohol every single day. It's not ideal for being at your best. But that is what a lot of people will do as a coping mechanism. When we get into it, they realize, actually, you're right. The reason I'm slowing it and I'm tapping a drink is basically to calm my mind down, to calm my body down, to reduce stress. So we had to come up with an alternative, which was more healthy, but which worked. But also the key bit was to make them aware of what was happening, which is really the game changer. And that's what I'm trying to share with you today. So I wonder, from what I've said, can you relate to any of those signals? And just a couple of practical ways to drop the RPM. I mean, you probably have some yourself. Some might be healthy, some might be unhealthy. But you could have some sort of version of a mini reset where maybe you're just taking, for example, a 90-second pause during your day, where maybe you exhale, you soften your gaze, you let your mind settle like a snow globe, you focus on your breath. Maybe you're doing it right now. Or you could take just a single channel focus. So instead of having multiple tabs open or multiple tasks open at the same time, you just remove every distraction and just focus on a single thing, a single radio channel. And I think a key point here is that you can't force mental calm. In fact, actually, when you try and force it, it gets worse. But you can create the conditions where it just starts to return naturally, because from my experience, it's innate. Now, I'm just going to give a little plug on something here, which is my audio club. If you like these podcasts, please consider joining the audio club, because they're long form audios designed to slow your mind down. When you slow your mind down, that also generates conditions for what I would call an insight, where you're starting to see something that allows for immediate change. And the cost for the audio club is $197 for the year, 12 long form audios. If you're not happy after the first audio, I'll give you your money back. Just email me. But I know you will be. The first audio itself is worth way more than €197. Anyway, the link is in the show notes. Check it out. It's high value. And if I'm being honest, I think before the end of the year, I'm going to increase the fee, but let's see. So let's close out with maybe a reflection. I think what I'm really saying today is that slowing your mind down is actually the stronger approach. That when your mental velocity falls, your presence arises, your focus improves, you become better. And I think most people instinctively know this if they consider it and reflect on it. So here's a 7-day experiment. Maybe notice over the next 24 hours when you're above 120 over 150 RPM. And just be aware of it, note it, maybe journal on it. But every day, do take some time to deliberately, particularly in the morning, deliberately focus yourself on slowing it down to less than 100 RPM and just pick one thing to focus on for even a period of time, whether it's an hour or 90 minutes, deliberately do that. Obviously, I would encourage you to kind of bring that slowing of the mind down into everything. But if you start small and build on it, there's a compound effect. And then at the end of the week, end of 7 days, just ask yourself this question, like, what did I get back by slowing my mind down? Did I see any difference? My bet is that you will, a significant one. Because the reality is that you don't need more hours in your day. You need the right speed. You need the right mental velocity. And when you do that, when you slow the RPM down and start to take control of it like an expert car driver, watch the quality of your work and the quality of your life quietly move up. That's it for this week. Ciao for now.